So Dr. Banta, how are cattle raised to begin with?
So when we think about the beef industry, we can break it into different segments. So we'll start with what we call the cow-calf segment. That's where those calves are born and then they're raised to about 6 to 7 months of age. And then we'd have a stocker operation, which is a grass-based operation like you see the calves behind us here today. Then those calves would move into a feedlot, and then after that they would move to the packing plant and then on into retail beef. But when we kind of think about how long that process takes, if we think about when that bull and cow breed, gestation's about 285 days, or about 9.5 months. So we would have that mating, and then roughly 9.5 months later, we would have that calf born. Calves will range from about 60 to 90 pounds on average at birth, with some a little less than that, some a little bit more, but we could say 80 pounds would be a kind of a good industry average. Then that calf is going to nurse that cow, and they're going to be out in the pasture grazing during this point in time for roughly 6 to 8 months of age. So let's just say we wean that calf at 7 months of age, which would mean we're just moving it away from its dam and getting it ready to proceed to the next step in the industry. At about 7 months of age, we'd expect those calves to weigh about 600 pounds. And again, that will vary depending on what part of the state of Texas or even what part of the country we're in. But for our example today, we'll use 600 pounds. Then we're going to take that calf to a stocker operation. And at that point in time, what we're doing is trying to use grass to put some more weight on that calf before he goes to the feedlot. And those calves will stay in that stocker operation anywhere from 2 months to 6 months. Kind of on average, if we look somewhere around 4 months, and we would take those calves from about 600 pounds to about 800 pounds. And depending on the kind of stocker operation they're in, they'll gain from 1 to 3 pounds a day. So like the winter annuals we're standing on today, so this would be a mixture of small grain rye and ryegrass. Those calves will gain anywhere from 2 to 3 pounds a day on that. And then once they reach that roughly 800 pounds, we would take them into a feedlot. And at that point in time, we're going to feed them a concentrate-based ration. We'll have some corn and some other grain products in there. And what we're doing is trying to put some extra fat on those calves and put some more marbling in them to enhance the eating experience. And when those calves are in the feedlot, they would go from about 800 pounds in this example to 1,300 or 1,400 pounds. So let's just say 1,350 pounds. Those calves would be, roughly 16 to 18 months of age at that point in time. And they would be gaining in the feedlot somewhere between 3 and 4 pounds a day typically. And the reason we're feeding them that more concentrated diet, like I mentioned before, is first cattle are going to put on lean muscle tissue, and then they'll start putting on some fat. So we need to have them gaining more weight, so they're putting on more fat and marbling in the feedlot. And then after that, obviously they would go to a packing plant, and then they would proceed on to the food chain from there. And when we look at that sequence, it will vary, but typically those calves, we're talking from when that bull and cow breed until that animal hits the packing plant, typically somewhere around 20, 25 months for that entire process to be completed.
So how does that compare to maybe the number of days or years that it might take for other countries like Brazil or Argentina?
Okay, so when we look at countries like Brazil and Argentina, which would primarily be grass-based systems, and so here in the U.S., when I talk about those three segments, the cow-calf were grass-based, the stocker were grass-based, but the feedlot were grain-based. What would be different about Brazil and Argentina is they would be grass-based in those first two segments as well, but then they finish on grass. And so instead of the animals that we talk about being harvested somewhere around roughly 24 months of age, they're growing much slower in that grass finishing system. So those calves could be anywhere from 3 to 5 years of age before they're ready for harvest.